Today's sponsor is Audible.com, who has more than 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Get a free audiobook of your choice at www.audibletrial.com/Trending Topics with BB.
Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown, hence the BB. Well, welcome back to another new episode. I want to first get the housekeeping that I always do in my intros out. So thanks for finding this podcast. I have noticed a spike in numbers recently. Not that I really care about numbers, I'm glad that people are finding this podcast and are enjoying the episodes. And if you are, please, like I said, it's really important that you, just for my sake, comment if you like this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, depending on what platform we use. I know we're on a lot of platforms. I mean, TuneIn, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Player FM. There's some new beta podcasting directories out there with awesome networks. Wherever you find this podcast, I appreciate it. But to be found on iTunes or Stitcher, I need a favorable rating and comment. And it just helps people find this podcast. Or if you would like, just tell a friend, family, or foe, and they can tune into this podcast. I don't know if you do know, I will be talking about this in this episode. But just a heads up, go to bbmediaindustries.com for all links for containing social media accounts for this podcast. Facebook, Trending Topics with BB, Instagram and Twitter, TT with BB. Like I said, if you just go to the main website, bbmediaindustries.com, you will find all those links there. So that is the housekeeping, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. I always do. That we can get into what I really want to talk about. And there's a couple topics, and I think they kind of all connect. But I wanted to bring back my fucking soapbox because I'm kind of fed up with what's going on in the world, not necessarily in the country. The country right now, we'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of the world, I mean, we're living in some of the worst divisive, however you want to say that word, times. And yet, there is good going on in the world, but yet, because of I guess you would have to say the trends going on, you're not privy to what's going on, if that makes sense. Let me explain. First, let's talk about the State of the Union address. If you were tuning into this podcast, this is after President Trump's first State of the Union. And if you have not been aware, during the election, I made my first soapbox was about candidate Trump at the time, because I've had this podcast for a few years. If you want to go back and listen to that episode, feel free. It is a great episode, mainly because my sentiments are still the same. But now, fast forward years later, and he's our fucking president. And it's just so exhausting. And here's why. I don't care what side you're on, whether you consider yourself Democrat, Republican. I don't consider myself a part of any party. I think the party system and labeling yourself conservative or liberal or any labels is really good for the entire system as a whole. So at a very young age, when I first started voting, I was like, I registered as a nonpartisan, and I've stayed as a nonpartisan. No, I'm not an independent. Independent is an actual party. I'm a nonpartisan. Look up the definition on Google if you're like, what? I didn't even know that exists. Yeah, get educated. But enough about that. My issues with our current president and my issues leading into what has turned into him becoming president has really just been basic human rights. And as someone who's a woman, who's a minority, multiracial, I can't help but just be angry at the ignorance and bigotry that A, comes out of the mouth of the president, and B, comes out of the mouth of his supporters. I don't care if supporters like, I get why some supporters are supporters. They thought, okay, this man is not technically part of a party, but he claimed to be Republican. He says whatever the fuck comes to his mind, and that's going to shake up the whole political system. So why don't we give this guy a chance and we fucking support this dude? But little did they know, they were getting conned just like everybody else. I personally think if you're a supporter of this man, look deep into why you, A, voted for him, or why you just avoided really actually going to the polls and voting, but you make your opinions known on social media, on the net, or when you're out and about in society. I just don't understand why we've become a country that can't figure out that every person is an immigrant and every person deserves an equal and fair chance at life. I don't fucking understand it. Obviously, people have always said, well, life isn't fair, but our country is still relatively young in the grand schemes of the world, and yet we're getting some shit so fucking wrong as a country. And I'm not talking whether it's a Democrat or Republican issue. I hate the politics behind it. I'm talking it's a human race. Why can't we believe that children need to get a good education, that we need to have a better healthcare system in place, that we need to honor our veterans better and keep them off the streets and homeless, to keep all homeless out of and get them in homes, to allow minorities to get a job so they can provide for their families, to get drugs. Really, I'm not talking about like street drugs. I'm talking prescription drugs. If you don't know, go back to I staged my own intervention this past year because I was on a prescription drug for 6 years that the doctors just kept dealing and giving to me. And I found out that I was so addicted. And I was addicted. I mean, I went through a whole withdrawal, but I went cold turkey on it because it was fucking up my life. Even though they were saying, oh, this is going to better your life. But anyway, go back and listen to those episodes because I talk about my intervention. But I'm not the only one dealing with shit where it has led to getting addicted to prescription drugs, which then has led to, the epidemic that we're in, the president mentioned. He only mentioned it because it's so fucked up. But there's a lot of things that are fucked up. Like, how come we're not hearing that there's been so many fucking school shootings, and we've only had 30 days in this fucking year? I do not understand why that is so buried in the news cycle and news, because people don't want to talk about gun reform. They don't understand it's such a divisive issue out of all politics. And I don't understand. It's about whether you kill somebody or you don't. And I'm not talking that I'm completely against guns at all. I just want there to be regulations in place so that sane people with guns, people that use them for recreation and hunting, keep your guns. If you want protection, great, but you have to have a fucking permit. And why do we need military-grade weapons on the streets? I understand maybe a .22, if you know what that is, or a handgun, but, all these things you have to be certified and know how to use. And that way it's safe for people that don't know how to use, so then we don't keep having these accidents. And considering that our mental health issues have been so over-stigmatized, it's just fundamental human rights. I just don't understand. Not only that, and then we got the immigration thing. Sure, let's keep fucking over the dreamers in this country. Let's keep saying, oh, we need to build a wall because that's really going to fix everything. A wall ain't going to fix shit. And I don't know how many times the president has to claim it, but Mexico is not going to pay for the fucking wall because it's a racist sentiment. Do you not understand? And then the president keeps spewing off other racism and bigotry. How about, let's say, his comment about shithole countries. That went all well about in those countries. I'm just so sick of, everybody's like, well, because I do not like Trump, I'm so liberal. Or, you just hate him because you just hate him. No, I don't like the guy because he threatens our very well-being as a diverse country. And then his stupid attacks on other countries with words. I mean, we don't need another world war because some dumbass gets on a fucking rant on his Twitter feed at 3 a.m. and then all of a sudden pisses off other world leaders. Everybody's doing what they need to do, and it's just mind-boggling. The overall ignorance in this country right now. And you're blindly ignorant if you're following with this dude. People that say, oh, well, I don't agree with everything that the president's doing. But the fact that you agree with him in any sense is kind of defeats the purpose. And whether you voted for him or you support him, I just don't get it. And I'm never going to get it because like I said, I fall into all the minority categories that you can possibly fall in. And I just feel that we're screwed. I really just wish people would take a hard look at what they really want going forward. Now, with that being said, this leads me into what pisses me off is I don't know if you know out there, and if you pay attention or if you care, but Facebook decided, because they're getting a lot of backlash about claims of rigging the election with Russia, and just look into more about the shit going down and the claims towards Facebook. The CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, announced last week or the week before, recently, that they were going to change things on Facebook for the better in his terms. You could read his post if you go to the public page or whatever. But basically, in his words, he's saying that Facebook is really bad for our mental health, which I agree, because let's just face it, we're all very addicted. I myself is one of them. I'm admitting my addiction. But also, my professional life has turned into using a lot of social media as a means. So not only am I using it, as me, but then I use it, in professional ways. So the addiction has just fed itself, and it's just a vicious cycle. But the point I'm getting at is that they want to change their algorithm, and basically what they're saying is that if you're a little person that is not a trusted news source, you are considered spam and you will be deleted. So basically censorship, because of all of the claims and backlash based on the whole fake news thing that the president always has said during his campaign through to now as president, always claiming that somebody's fake news. So basically, if you're a blog, a website such as myself, you are going to be deleted or considered spam, and then you have to make and the reason he claimed, he didn't say that in words, but this is really what's happened, because earlier this week I got a bunch of notifications from Facebook saying you can't post this, and they took down a bunch of my posts of my personal blogging that I do for music, or that I want to share this podcast link to friends and family and followers. Days after they were posted, they were taken down, and there was nothing that was offensive in any of my posts. I strategically knew what the original policies at Facebook were, but now they're censoring everything that is basically what will make the little one and all of us in marketing kind of scratch our heads about. So basically, we're being completely censored. And remember when we had that little hiccup a couple months ago about the whole net neutrality thing? This kind of with that, I don't agree with it. I think we should be able to keep the net the way it is. We shouldn't have to pay providers to be able to access websites. No matter what the supporters think, I really think that was... Anyway, the fact that we're dealing with that, I think this is kind of... I don't know. I'm thinking that it has something to do with all that bullshit, but I'm just so fucking frustrated as an entrepreneur myself, who uses, has used social media probably more than I should, but now I can't really get my links across because it's not trusted news. Thus, it will be deleted if I share it any other place other than the initial pages that are identified with it. I personally think that's fucked up. And if you're not paying attention, I hope you kind of wake up. And if you want to learn more, maybe you could Google. But there's a bunch of articles coming out about, and it's not just Facebook. I feel Twitter's done a lot of censorship and banning of people because they say one thing, even if they don't really mean it, or it's come across wrong because of context, and then they have been kicked off of Twitter for that. So Twitter's doing it, but it's just very frustrating because it really, if someone who's been trying to create a career in this as an entrepreneur, I just, that's frustrating. And I think it has to do with a lot of the politics that I basically have kind of alluded to in the beginning of this episode. But it's just so fucking frustrating. And I'm just frustrated in general because things that you try to make better and to improve on yourself as a person is to try to help others, which is what I do. And it's just hard when you can't get the word out because you're not considered important enough for that word. So I don't know if I've just been rambling, but I'm just so fucking frustrated, and I felt the need to do this new soapbox episode and talk about some shit that's just fucked up. And I don't care what you can claim, whatever the fucking political party you want to claim, but when it comes down to it, we're fucking humans. Why can't we all just live harmoniously? Why can't we all also agree to disagree and be more dignified with how we interact? I don't understand why, when we disagree, we're just so sensitive right now, specifically with the way things are. And on that note, BB is out.
Today's sponsor is Vibedration. Vibedration provides designer hydration packs designed to make you look cool, keep your stuff safe, and stay hydrated at music festivals and events. Their holographic designs add to your festival ensemble. Make sure you get your pack using promo code BB Media Industries LLC to save 10% on your new pack on Vibedration.com. Oh, and one more thing. Free shipping on orders over $75. #Life's a party. Stay hydrated.